Hi, Piyush. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Julian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Today, Thursday, August 6th, 2026, and we are here ready for our monthly podcast to review the market stat evolution as well as forecasting the mortgage rate that we can expect in the coming months. So, without any further ado, I'm going to remove this beautiful sky view of Greece and wishing happy holidays to everyone that is on holidays right now. And we're going to start this podcast with something a bit unusual, but it's still very important, and it made sense to Piyush and I to run it by our viewers and listeners, which is the wildfires that is happening all over the world, and most importantly in BC. It's a reality that is ugly, and we want to shout out to all the firefighters out there trying to keep the communities safe, and want to send our deepest compassion to people that lost their properties. Piyush, do you want to say something?
Yeah, it in our part of the world, wildfires are a annual occurrence. It's something that we live with, even though there isn't a fire in our vicinity that's too out of control for us, but we do get affected by it, and we do see our fellow Canadians, fellow British Columbians who are affected by it on an annual basis. So this is something very important to us.
It is very important. So I will put in the description of this video the link to the Wildfire Recovery Fund for BC that helps communities to rebuild after those fires. And I will donate myself $100. Piyush, how are you feeling today?
Yeah, good. Yeah, same amount.
Same amount. We're leading the charge, and again, send our deepest compassion to the people affected by this tragedy. And my families are actually firefighters, so it's something very close to my heart. So very good. Stay strong out there if you're affected, and hopefully better days are ahead of us. That being done, we're gonna go over our usual program, which is looking at the evolution of offer, demand, and price evolution, and finish it off with the evolution of price per square foot for condos resale market in Vancouver. So off we go. All right. So we're looking at the total inventory, which translates as the offer, like the good old story about offer and demand, or supply and demand. So this is our supply. Our supply is still very high. It's coming down. From a year earlier, we are having 11.5% less new listing. Okay. And when we're looking at the 10-year average, we are above, right? We are above the 10-year average. So the 10-year average sits, let me see, inventory 26.8% above the 10-year average. Okay, so in those times, it's still nice to look at the year over year, but also to take into consideration the 10-year average, okay, to see the kind of market we are into. So in terms of supply, we're 26.8% above the 10-year average. Okay, so still a lot of properties to choose from. Okay, as we kept on mentioning during our previous videos. Very different market from 5 years ago, where there was, 5 years ago we were here, 2021. So definitely very contained inventory and high demand. So properties were just like being snatched like a couple of days, couple of weeks after they were after they were getting on the market. So now very different market dynamic, but interesting to see that is still dipping, right? We're still in the deeping phase of that dynamic. Okay, we reached our ceiling glass, and then we're coming back down. And if we look at the previous years, it did so significantly for number of months. So we're going to continue to monitor the evolution of the inventory, and from there we'll be able to determine the price evolution ultimately. But before we get there, we're going to look at the sale, and that's where the basically not good news is coming from, because last month we have a bit of a revival in the volumes. Okay, so volumes are very important, because when volumes are going up like significantly, then that makes the market dynamic, and prices go up. Okay, so for property owners is a good sign. For buyers, seems that timing is still very, very important. As we said with Piyush over the last few months, is hasn't been a better time to buy a property than now in the last 10 years, and that is still being true. It's still being true. Some of the industry leaders, they were calling for a reverse in the trend from last June's numbers, but we are being forced to basically witness that we are still in our decline, and 2026 will be worse than 2025, and 2025 was the worst year since 2000 in terms of volumes. Okay, so there's, in my opinion, and I'd like to ask you, Piyush, about that, there is no doubt that it's going to reverse at some point, because it's cyclical, right? So that's going to reverse, and there's going to be a moment where this is going to go up. Like, I'm not sure how far we're going to go. June 2019 was our deepest ever, and right now we are in the third deepest lowest amount of volume. Okay, so what do you think about that, Piyush?
Yeah, this, they are saying that there's an expiration date on all of this. If you're on the sideline, at the best, all of these things will reverse in 2030. So, but that's a long time from we're in 2026 right now. It's going to take 4 years, and I speak specifically about those pre-sale properties, the condo market. That will take that long to recover. But if your aim is to buy something with land, so you're looking at duplexes, townhomes, or detached homes, it's the best time to buy right now for those ones.
Certainly. So we're going to go a bit deeper in terms of price evolution of those specific property type. I'd like to mention the 10-year average. So sales are 18.6% below the 10-year average. Okay. Mm-hmm. So again, 10-year average in terms of supply, we're 26% above the 10-year average. And in terms of demand, number of sales, we are 18% below the 10-year average. Okay. So it does have an impact on the price. And I've been I'll be clear, somehow frustrated with that line over here, because in my opinion, it doesn't necessarily reflect the reality of the market. In terms of numbers, the price is still going down, like trending lower. Okay. My frustration is coming from the fact that depending on the basically statistic outlet that you are consulting, some will call for 20% below the tip, but below the top. But at this point, like, this chart doesn't reflect that, like 1.2 to 1.11 is not 20% decline. So that's why I'm a bit like, okay, well, is it really showing us the full picture, or what's the calculation that gives us this number? But okay, we're gonna
Like
leave it at that.
this price, I would assume this is for a detached home.
Okay, so this price, good question, and we need to make it clear. This is called the MLS Home Price Index.
Yeah.
Home Price Index. Okay, so basically it's a calculation of all property types, detached, townhome, and condo. Okay, that has been hitting the MLS. Okay.
Okay.
And then that's why we're able to have those statistics and those charts, because the
So when
MLS kind of gather everything and then produces those stats.
So they have predicted a 20% drop on this.
No, like, so depending on the statistic outlet, like if it's BCREA or CREA, like it makes mention of 20% difference from our peak price in 2021. Okay, and now. But the thing is, if we look at the peak price of 2021, there is not 20%, because here is 190. Let's call it 1.2, and now we're
That's
at
2022. That's 2022.
2022. So
You gotta go 2021.
keep in mind, this chart is on a 12 months average in order to have a more linear trend. Okay, so actually, you know what? We can look at it from
that's what I was gonna say. I don't think that this chart would be that good to show that, because if it's combining everything.
All property type. Okay, so here, home price index. All right. I'm gonna do this live. Okay, so here, March 2022, February 2022, 1.25 peak price, and now 1,088,000. There is no 20%. 20% of 1.2 is so 120,000 times 2 is 240,000. Okay, so again, depending on the statistic outlet that you're consulting, then we have different numbers. So hoping to bring some clarity about those prices at the next podcast. But going back to the price evolution, there is no doubt that it's trending lower at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay?
So the price that you are showing versus now, 2021, that's only a 13% drop. It's not a 20% drop.
Correct. Okay. And from what I've seen, it's being closer to 20%. Keep in mind, the HPI price take into consideration all the municipalities included in the Greater Vancouver. Okay?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's maybe why, but it's trending lower. Okay, so if we want to apply a bit more details as per the price evolution of different property type, so the detached market dropped by 7% year over year. Okay, condo 7.5, townhouse 6%. What do you think of those decline?
Not bad. Not bad for buyers.
Not bad for buyers. I would tend to agree. Not bad for buyers.
But for us, for what we're used to, those are significant drops.
I mean, if I compare Vancouver market to other markets that are not as volatile, keep in mind that volatile is when there is a 2 digits evolution. So for instance, if there would be 10% drop, 2 digits, then it enters the volatile market. Okay. So it's not per se volatile at the same time for a real estate market. Okay. We're not talking about stocks. For a real estate market, 6% is still like, okay, not good, but all right. But 7.5, it's getting there. You know what I mean? It's getting to the point where like, okay, well, that was a correction, you know?
Yeah. What I'm saying, like for us, as we've mentioned before, in BC, we're not used to such price drops. We're only used to seeing price go up and up and up.
Well, you do have it here, the price evolution, okay? And the last big drop was after the implementation of the stress test.
Right.
Okay.
And that was even that was a pretty temporary dip.
I mean, well, temporary at the time, you know, it felt long.
Right, because it was something new that everybody had to deal with. That there was, everyone thought that it did reduce people's purchasing ability by $100,000. So, but people got over that very quickly.
So for our viewers, listeners, so the stress test was implemented January 1st, 2018 by the feds for registered bank with at the federal level. So it ultimately doesn't apply to credit union, okay, even though they reserve the right to.
But they still apply it when you go use the mortgage.
To be clear, the stress test was in fact a way to prevent what happened in 2008 in the US. Okay, so they looked at it and said, okay, well, prices are going up, as we can see here, and they wanted everybody, all the new home buyers, okay, or everybody accessing a mortgage, to make sure that to the extent that the interest rate will go up, that they will still be able to pay. So basically, they implemented the stress test. So at the time, we're looking at 3.5%, let's say, okay, rate, and they were applying, and maybe you can add details to it, but the stress test is a higher rate, and they wanted to make sure that you apply for the higher rate so that you have that buffer. And the consequence of that is overnight, from December 31st to January 1st, people accessing a mortgage to purchase their home,
yeah,
they saw their purchase power being reduced by 20%.
Exactly. And I can share my own personal experience with this, because I had purchased a pre-sale property which was gonna close in June of 2018. And when I found out, because you have your cursor right at June of 2018 there, and when I find that out about the stress test, what I did, I went to a broker. My friend's dad was a mortgage broker, and he got me pre-approved. And what that did was, since I got my pre-approval locked in before the stress test was implemented, it was still grandfathered in, and I was able to qualify for that mortgage without having to get my parents on as co-signers or as guarantors in the mortgage. If I had not done that, I would have qualified for about $80,000 to $90,000 less worth of mortgage based on my current income at that time, and I would have had to get mom and dad to sign up as a co-signer. So that's the effect that it can have potentially on your mortgage qualification side. The number that they use, the percentage, it is contract rate plus 2%. Or 5.25, whichever is higher. So in the last few years, since the contract rate is what your current mortgage rate is going to be. So if you're in the 3.8 or 4%, So it'll be 5.8 or 6%. That's the qualification rate. If it was lower, then the qualification rate would be 5.25. So just remember, whichever is higher.
Mhm.
And that's the barrier. So even though your payment is going to be based on whatever the interest rate that you lock in, or the variable rate that you get at the time, you have to qualify based on that higher amount. The purpose of that was to protect homeowners from exactly what we went through in 2023, when Bank of Canada, if you were on a variable rate, they increased their rates, right? They did multiple rate increases.
It was
And this,
2022.
sorry?
It was 2022 where they increased the rate by 6 or 7 times in a year, which was unheard of.
Correct. So, but then it happened there, and it spread over, and a lot of clients who had the variable rate, they had that delayed effect, because a lot of them went from having a 1.15, like I've had people with that variable rate, and it's not until later on when we got to the point where the rate was increased so many times that your interest rate sat at 6%.
Mm.
So um, a lot of those folks felt a lot of pressure, because what they had to do was, if they were in a variable rate, because that's what it affected uh, people the most, is they were actually making their interest payments, sorry, their mortgage payment was only servicing interest rates. They were not paying down any principal, and some of them had what we call a trigger rate, where your payment just doesn't cover enough of the interest payment, and they actually had to go in and make lump sum payments to pay down the principal, to bring the mortgage payment in line with what it had been set.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, but the thing is, with that stress test built in there, there were very, very little people, like we didn't see people go into foreclosure. Like, we didn't see people who had to like sell, like, okay, I can't afford this anymore. We didn't see that happen. This is
Mhm.
what happened actually in the States. This is the reason why we have the stress test, because in 2008, um, what snowballed into the defaults in the United States, because they had all these people who had these promo rates when they bought the homes, and then when the promotion ran out and the renewal came and the interest rate jumped so high, all of a sudden these people could not afford those payments anymore. They were defaulting on their they were falling behind on their payments. They defaulted on the mortgage, and then the bank started calling all these loans, and that's where they dug in, and they saw so many people down the States bought homes that they should not have been qualified to buy in the first place if it weren't for those promotional rates.
Yeah, and there is more to that. I mean, like, we can expand, because on top of that, so prices went down, and there people were owing more than what the property was worth. And what happened is they just went to the bank and gave the keys back and said, "Hey, here, it's yours now."
Exactly. So when that situation started snowballing and people started dumping the properties to get out of the mortgage, so everyone's selling for cheaper and cheaper, and then it caused all across the board properties to drop, and then that's what you just mentioned happened, and it just made it even worse.
Yeah, and there are two things I want to mention. The first one is, in the US, if you happen to give the keys back to the bank, well, the bank now owns the property, and they will sell it on court order sale and stuff like that. But here, you can't do that in Canada. It doesn't work the same way.
It's a longer process.
Yeah, and it's just, you cannot just go to the bank and say, "Hey, the property is yours now." Like, they will go for the mortgage amount. So yeah, and the other thing I want to talk about is what you mentioned regarding those people that were not supposed to access a mortgage given their financial situation. And there is this scene in The Big Short. If you haven't seen it, I highly encourage you to look at it, to watch
Love
it.
that movie.
It's a great movie, and there is this scene. There are a few scenes that are key to me in this movie, but there is this one where they're trying to, because at the time, they didn't really know, the financier and the investors, they didn't know that people had access to a mortgage, because the logic was they will apply the mortgage to the house, not necessarily to the person, because prices will still on going up. Okay, so basically anybody could walk to mortgage broker and say, hey, I want to buy this house, and the mortgage broker would look at the property and say, okay, give me a down payment of X much, and then I don't care about how much money you make every month, right?
Yeah.
So then they were able to, like, people started to buy multiple properties, and then there is this scene where the Michael Burry, so Michael Burry is the financier that basically saw it happening, and he was investigating also on the field at the time. So he was going to offices of mortgage brokers, and they were like, okay, so hey guys, how complicated or not complicated is it to get a mortgage? And then the mortgage broker, like Piyush, right, but from the US, from in 2006 and 7 and so on, they were like, oh well, I'll have it approved by 2 hours after I
It
filed
wasn't
it.
Michael Burry. It was the guy from Office. It was his character who was going around doing that.
Sorry?
It was the guy from Office.
Yeah.
Steve Carell's character.
Yeah, but the real guy in the real life, because it's based on true events, that movie.
Yeah,
it's
Michael Berry
Burry.
was part of the movie, but he was a different guy. He was the one who shorted.
He played a cameo.
Yeah.
So, and then Michael Burry looks at his team and he says, they're bragging about it. Which basically tells you, like, okay, there is a bubble. There is a bubble. Okay, like, we did a bit of history, which is an aspect of our podcast that I like, because we saw a price drop like back in 2018. If we look at the numbers, basically HPI price was 1 million. It went down to 890. So we're looking at 12%, right? 12% decline.
Mm-hmm.
So for sure, people that bought there in basically 2018, like you did, and started to see the price go lower, we're like, oh my goodness, okay, what did I get myself into? But then the market absorbed it. Okay, so usually it takes 6 months to a year for a market to absorb the systemic change, which is what happened here. Because then so decline started like fall 2018, and in the fall of, I remember this actually, in 2019, fall being usually kind of like a slower pace time of the year. I recall, like, doing the stats, but on my own. I didn't have you at the time, and looking at the market, kind of having more volumes and prices go higher and so on. And I was like, oh my God, that's kind of odd for this time of the year to have a market that is now getting up to speed. And then 2020, February, March 2020, with COVID and very low interest rate, and then that's it. That drove that burst right there. Yeah. Okay, and now we are kind of still hangover from that burst. Okay, with all consequences that we've been.
So a lot of people who bought during that period now, if you bought up in 2022, you most likely are holding on to a property that's worth less than what you paid for at the time.
Yes, same like what happened here, 2018, right? In 2018, people, when they were in 2019, they had a property that was worth less than they paid for. But then, today, we're actually seeing, depending on type of property and location, like similar prices. For instance, for condos in Vancouver, which is my next slide. Okay, So price per square foot. So we dipped from the previous months. So we broke the $1,000 mark, and then we last month we're at 989, and this month we're at 982. So if we go back to basically in March 2018, price per square foot in Vancouver was $990. Okay. So you're buying at 2018 prices for condo in Vancouver. All right. Not to be confused with the HPI price, which again blends all property types and all the municipalities. Right now, it's a focus. This one, we're looking at the price per square foot for condos resale in Vancouver municipality only. So picture downtown, because I'm not sure, I don't want to make up a stat, but downtown is driving that stat by a lot, because that's where most of the volume is, because that's where most of the condo in Vancouver are. Okay.
Yeah.
So right now, for a condo in Vancouver, you're buying 2018 prices, which, is also the reason why I'm saying there is no better time than now in the last 10 years to buy. Right?
Yep.
Very good. Well, Piyush, let me ask you a very clean, simple question. We witness a change of overnight rate till the end of this year.
The likelihood for that is low. So the prediction right now, so next Bank of Canada announcement is September 2nd, next month. The probability of them to make a move or drop the rate as of right now, 0%.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm looking at a implied probability from this thing right now. There is now the following announcement after that is in October. The probabilities of them to drop a rate in October is about 24%.
Because, okay, and what was the probability of them increasing the rate?
No. So they're not expecting them to increase any rates at the moment. So
okay, so if anything would happen at this point with what we know, it would be more, if anything, would be more of a rate drop than a rate hike.
Exactly. But you know what I lean towards, being more conservative. I think they're going to stay the course.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
because there's
who am I?
Yeah, it's just too many things that this has been the theme, honestly, for the last few months, that we've talked about. There's too many things that are up in the air. So it just doesn't make sense for the Bank of Canada to drop the rate, because if they drop the rate, they will, get the economy, they might increase inflation by doing so, because it just makes things cheaper. People go in there and they'll overspend, and that's what causes inflation. So we don't want an inflationary move to happen. We talked about last couple of times was that we were in a technical recession, but guess what? Last month the GDP grew by like 0.2% or something. So technically we're not in a recession, because now we had an increase, right? Because when you have 3 periods of drops, then you're in a recession, and if you have in 2, then you're in a technical recession. So there's no reason for the Bank of Canada to move.
And I can definitely see them that it's hard to follow the world leaders and their actions. That's going to impact the price of oil. And I've been quite intrigued by the evolution of price of oil given the situation. And I was watching some news outlet that like economical news outlet
that
China is behind the compression of the volatility behind the oil price evolution. They didn't want the oil prices to go up, so they did what they could, and they definitely went super efficient about it, and that's why we still have a price of the barrel being kind of navigating between 75 to 90, right? And not being under and over for any extended period of time.
So as of right now, when I'm looking at it, the WTI oil index, it says 76, 78.
Yeah.
So, and this is a $9, let's say call it a $10 drop. So this has to do with, this whole dance that the U.S. government or Trump is doing with the Iranians via their proxies, like the Qatar, Saudi Arabia. They're talking supposedly there's these deals going on, so that's taking the pressure off. But we've been through this several times in the last 4 months, where like, oh, we're talking, we're negotiating, everybody gets positive, everyone's like, oh, okay, things are going to get improved, then the price of oil drops. And Canada being an oil export country, we are driven by oil. So then our projections for inflation drops, and that causes the bond yield to drop, causes the fixed rates to drop. So we have these, cascading effects that happens in the real world, right? So 5-year bond yield right now. So if you, open up that one. Excuse me. Now click just 5 days.
5 days?
5 day. Look at that drop.
Yeah.
And so that's around there when these news reports started coming out.
Okay. If I do like a year historical chart, a year ago,
this conflict is relatively new. Do 6 months.
323.
Do 6 months, because if we're talking specifically in the terms of this conflict, so you see that at the end of February, beginning of March, I guess, this is when this whole war with Iran started, and then we've just gone through this constant volatility.
The spread is not crazy. From 3, basically from like that's the shock. Then we went to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Then we've been pretty much navigating in the 3
pretty
to
much,
3,
but then
25, which is super contained, and the price of oil, as you mentioned, has been driven by the news of coming from oh yeah, we have a deal, we don't have a deal, I'm gonna bomb them, I'm not gonna bomb them, we have a deal. But also China reduced their oil consumption by 50%.
Oh, okay.
Which equals the world consumption of oil for India. So apparently they were like, okay, they don't want any oil shock to happen, because that will impact their business, because people will consume a lot less. So they didn't want it to happen. So they implemented like very impressive measures to be able to, part of those measures is to access their oil reserve that they built over the years. And they have quite a bit. So they are tapping into that, just like the US did, in order to keep the price of the barrel under somehow control until the next episode. But it's something that we are monitoring, because it's unfortunately, I can't believe that we're in 2026 and we're still so dependent on oil. You know what I mean? It's still it feels like we're in the 80s.
So I looked up what you said. So from what I've looked up here, China has roughly reduced their oil consumption or oil imports by roughly 7 million barrels per day, and that's their goal by mid 2026. And the way they're able to make this structural shift is we already know that they are a growing producer of EV market. And as we've heard with the negotiations that Mark Carney has done, the Prime Minister of Canada, with China, they're going to let in about 40,000 or 50,000 Chinese-made EVs into Canada every year. And so that's how the Chinese government has been able to reduce their oil imports by shifting to EVs, not only for private transportation, a lot of their public transportation, their buses, they have trains already, high-speed trains run on electricity.
Yeah, no, I mean, the
a lot of
consumption.
things that have gone into it for them to be able to make that shift now.
Yeah, and they cancel some plane route as well. I mean, they did a number of things. It's just not one button that you activate magically that's going to allow you to reduce your oil import by 50%. It's just a lot of things that they were able to do. I mean, like, I'm just impressed. That's it. Like, it's just I'm just so impressed, like, that they were able to do that. And also Europe, for the first time, their first resource for energy production is renewable energy, and it's actually solar panel.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought you were about to say nuclear.
No, solar panel for Europe. So basically, for France, for sure. For France, for sure, because after the second oil shock in the 80s, there is actually a punchline to this. There was used in France. We don't have oil, but we have ideas. Okay, and it was part of the strategy to say, okay, we want to basically not be dependent on oil, and the country that can produce oil, we have no oil. And ultimately they looked at what were the alternatives, and nuclear came in the picture, and they dedicated a lot of research and development and investments into it, so that they could be leader in the nuclear energy, which has been paying off, because we're looking now more and more to nuclear energy, but at the scale of Europe. Not all countries have embraced the nuclear, because the benefit of nuclear energy is that it doesn't produce as much CO2 emission as opposed to coal and oil. But at the same time, the issue that they don't tell you, but I will tell you, is once with the waste of uranium. Like, once the uranium, you extract its power to generate electricity, then you have the waste of that remaining uranium, and that is hard to discard. It's hard. It's very hard.
It's still radioactive for 1,000 years after.
Yeah. So what do you do with it? Like, it's still a threat. It's a health hazard, a significant health hazard. So what do you do? So they've been burying it deep. They've been, like, there was some idea to send it out of space, right? So there's still no solution around that. So work in progress. Anyway, well, we went a little bit macro over here, but that's good. That's good. So if we go back, and I think, for the most part, what interests our viewer is the price evolution here. If you were to, let's make a little air gamble. You know what's an air gamble?
What?
You don't do that? You don't go to the casino and do some air gamble?
Oh, I mean, gamble, like, I'm throwing in the wheel once in a while.
Yeah, well, but I do air gamble. Basically, I go and I bet in my head. I say, hey, it's gonna be like this number, and then if I win, I'm happy. If I lose, I'm like, I didn't lose anything.
Okay, I've never heard the term air gamble.
So air gamble. Let's say next year, August 2027. what, in your opinion, will be the year-over-year price evolution from August 2026?
I would break it down by category. I wouldn't do it the way they have this because for me that's impossible to
Okay.
predict.
Yeah. It's basically a shortcut to basically show the price evolution, but it's not easy, right? There is not a real estate market. There are many different real estate markets, right?
Yeah. I would say the price of detached homes will go up.
Okay.
Because they're not making any more land. So anything to do with where you specifically own the piece of land, I think everything to do with that, those prices will go up.
So I want to comment on that because you're partly true. Because when you're in a condo, you still own part of the land, but you just divide that right with the other people of the strata.
Yeah.
Right. So you own it, but you have a smaller share. And the potential has been expressed. Okay. So what you're saying is logical. When you buy a single detached home, you have a piece of land and a right associated onto that piece of land. And depending on the municipality and the zoning, let's say it's you can build there's been the SSMUH.
You can tear it down, you can build it up from scratch, you can put a laneway, all that kind of stuff.
You can put like a 4-plex, 6-plex on some of them now for a year because of the SSMUH from the province. So yeah, there's still unexpressed value in single detached home. So your approach of saying like, okay, prices will go up for single detached home. What's okay? So what's the average price for a single detached home in Greater Vancouver?
No.
Give it a wild guess.
Probably around 1.5, 1.6.
Not too far. 1.822.
Okay.
Okay. So you see those prices going up. Okay, very good. And then what about the rest?
I think condos will stay flat purely because of the fact of the oversupply and the lack of demand. That part might change if the government of Canada again tweaks its immigration policy, because that's the only way you're going to get more incentive for investors and new people to come into the market to fill in that gap that's there. Or if they remove the foreign buyer tax, that's something that we discussed potentially. That'll come to end this year. So if that part changes, then we will see an increase. If it doesn't have, it'll stay the same or potentially drop even more. But I would lean towards it staying the same.
Flat.
Duplex and townhouses will see smaller increases, but I think detached homes will see the bigger increase.
Which one will see the bigger increase?
I think detached homes will see a bigger increase.
Homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, it would make sense just for our viewers, listeners. So the average price of a condo in Greater Vancouver is $688. Okay. And for a townhouse is $1,030,000. So, well, it's going to be published on YouTube. It will stay on the internet forever. See you in a year.
We'll come back. What about you? Why are you putting me on the spot? You're the realtor.
I forgot my crystal ball in my car.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. I think the the market is a beast, and we live in a beautiful part of the world where there is less problems than other parts. When it comes to price evolution, we have this trend. So over here, from the last basically market flip we witnessed in 2018, we've been through a decrease of about 12 to 15%. So I would say that, you see, if you were to do some chart analysis, like you could have a trend, and to what extent are we close to the end of the price correction? I think the next big test will be next spring.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
because by that time we should see there should be a change. The question that you asked me earlier, when can we do you expect change in the Bank of Canada this year? This year, no. By next year, there should be some sort of a move. There has to be. And that will drive it. If there's a drop, you will see an increased activity. People will get in more because whenever that change happens, it always gets people excited. Lots of buyers jump in the market. If it goes the other way, you might see listings stay even more on
the market.
On the market for longer. Yeah.
Well, in terms of volume of sales, but I will add for price evolution, we are very dependent on the US, and they're going to be the midterms, right, coming up.
Yes.
And that we'll see if the president in power keeps the same level of power, or if his power being decreased. Okay, and how is that going to impact monetary policies and international relations? Okay,
that too, and even here's not to dabble into politics or go into a little bit deeper. Even if he loses, and if on the Democratic side, because we're seeing a change in this one wing of the Democratic Party and the type of people that are taking over, who have far left-leaning tendencies, what kind of change will they bring? How will the market react to them getting in, into the U.S. government and the potential effect? Because you know what, with the markets, they don't have to wait to see the result. They will do it just based on perception. So when I say the markets, I mean the stock markets. How will they react? And even though the stock market does not reflect the real economy, it does have the potential to snowball.
But also, like, price is one thing, but when it comes to volume of sales, I think we are in the I don't see it going that much more below where it's at now, right? Like 21,000, 22,000. Like right now, I think we're gonna go flat. We're gonna go flat for maybe the rest of the year, and next year we're gonna start to see an increase. Yeah.
Good.
So that's it. Well, that was good.
Lots of wide variety of topics today.
Yes, indeed. Very good. Well, I'll see you next month. In the meantime, you can follow Piyush on social media. What's your handle, Piyush?
So you can follow me on Instagram, mortgages dot Piyush Agrawal. You can give me if you want to set up an appointment, you want to discuss your pre-qualification. If you're looking to buy, you can give me a call at 778-994-3099. And if you're looking to buy a property, you can call Julian.
If
Julian,
you
what's your
look to buy
information?
or sell. If you're looking to
Exactly.
buy or sell. Yeah. So your handle for Instagram is mortgage.piyushagrawal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a long one. Well, my handle
What
is
was yours?
Julien.realtor, JULIEN.realtor. And I repost Piyush stuff, so it will be easier for you to grab his handle from my handle.
Yeah,
My
so
account.
we, once this is recorded, all of this is pushed out to social media. Julian will have it on his YouTube. We have it jointly done. So if anybody wants to reach out to either one of us, you're able to do so from honestly, from any source of social media that you'll see this, wherever you're seeing this post right now.
Yeah. So very good. My phone number is 604-837-1979. And I make a pride to pick up the phone, right? I like to pick up the phone, particularly like it's an unknown number. It reminds me, when we were kids and we had like, on a landline, his phone is ringing. What is this? Like, whoa.
Well, a lot fewer spam calls back then, right? So
There were a few, yeah, there were some, but I still receive some. So that's all right. Very good. Well, Piyush, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. Much appreciated. See you next month.
right
I will
back at you, buddy.
post your usual story on Instagram when it comes down to the next decision of the Central Bank of Canada, which should remain the same.
So expect that September 2nd.
Okay. And we'll talk about it right after with the market stat.
Sounds good. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Piyush. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.